Hi, I'm Haley Mills, the podcast producer for Integration Nation. In this mini-series, Alison is going to talk about mindfulness-based concepts to provide you with additional insight into tools that will help you to do the identity work we talk about in our full-length episodes this season. On today's mini-episode, Alison is going to talk to you about self-awareness, what it means, and how this ties into your intersectional identity. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us for this episode, and I'll touch base with everybody afterwards to sum up what Alison talked about and to give you a heads up on what to look forward to in the coming episodes as we expand on the idea of identity.
Hi, I'm Alison Sullivan, a licensed clinical social worker, psychotherapist, and you are listening to Integration Nation, a podcast to introduce you to and expand your knowledge about effective, integrative mental health concepts, practices, and approaches. Welcome back, everybody. We are so excited to be back in the recording studio and creating new content for our beloved Integration Nation community. And we are starting off today by finishing up our 3-part mindfulness mini-series. If you recall, we did 2 previous minis in our mindfulness series. The first one talking about self-inquiry, what that was and kind of how to do it and why it mattered. And then we followed that up with an episode of similar length. I think that one was, between 5 and 7 minutes to talk about self-reflection, kind of building on another mindfulness practice, what self-reflection actually is and why it matters and how to do it. And so I'm here today to do the same thing for you all about self-awareness. And I think a good place to start is by using Daniel Goleman's definition of what self-awareness is. He basically describes self-awareness as being made up of emotional awareness, accurate self-assessment, and self-confidence. So it really boils down to knowing your emotions, knowing your personal strengths and weaknesses, and having a strong sense of who you are and your worth. All of that sounds so great, doesn't it? I mean, isn't that what we're all striving for? I think it is. And I think sometimes that term, self-awareness, gets confused with some other terms. So what self-awareness isn't, is it isn't selfish and it isn't self-centered. Those two things kind of have a pejorative understanding where people really see it as being all about me and I'm just concerned about me and what's important to me and to the exclusion of everybody else around me. And that's not really what self-awareness is about. And in some ways, it's kind of the antithesis of those things, because by having self-awareness, and this is really why it matters, it can really help you to build satisfying relationships with other people, not just people in your family, of course that's important, but also friends and colleagues, all kinds of people. It can also help you build a more satisfying relationship with your career, whether you're in the same career you started out in, whether you're thinking about building a career, or whether you're transitioning your career. And it really can help you to navigate life transitions. That's something that we all experience as human beings, transitioning from one part of our life to another, transitioning from one role and adding in another role in our lives, or maybe kind of deconstructing a role that we thought we had in our life until we find out actually that doesn't fit anymore. Self-awareness is key for all of those things because if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. If we know who we are, if we understand our emotional landscape, if we can accurately really kind of monitor that stuff and assess that stuff, and if we have the confidence to be able to do that, even when we're kind of exploring our weaknesses and our areas of opportunity, then that really puts us in the powerful driver's seat of creating and cultivating a life that has deep meaning for who we are, and a life that can be flexible and open to change, which is another really important marker of people experiencing a deeply satisfying life. Okay, so we've covered what it is and why it matters. So how do we do this? Well, in the broadest stroke that I can paint for you, through mindfulness-based practices, because at its core, mindfulness-based practices help us to develop a curious, open, non-judgmental relationship with ourselves and with our experiences. And that matters because we're not going to be able to accurately understand our emotional life and accurately assess what's happening if we are meeting ourselves with judgment, if we are meeting ourselves in a place of shame. So we have to be able to be open and curious and non-judgmental, or at least have a working relationship of that to really cultivate self-awareness. Specifically, there are 3 things that we can do on a regular basis, or 4 things really, to build more self-awareness. We can practice self-inquiry. And if you need a reminder on how to do that, we have that mini for you that will show you some really easy kind of prompts to think about and question to develop a self-inquiry practice. And you can develop a self-reflection practice. Again, we've got another great mini to help you do that, to really help you develop some ways to debrief after you've had an experience and kind of check in with yourself about how you think and feel about what's happening in your life. Meditation as a regular, consistent practice is another way to develop really strong self-awareness because it creates just a more comfortable relationship of being inside our bodies and sitting with the sensations, the thoughts, the feelings, all of the things that arise and move through us during that consistent practice of meditation. And finally, I think feedback, with some qualifications, is another really important way to cultivate self-awareness. And what I mean by feedback is really listening to feedback from trusted people in your life, whether those are work colleagues, trusted confidants, the people in your inner circle that you really do believe have your best interest at heart. And if you are finding yourself as one of those people, I've been there before, where you're not sure if you've got some trusted people in your inner circle, it's enough to just listen to feedback from colleagues, from supervisors, about how you're showing up in your relationships. And really, that's the whole point of feedback, is to really listen to how other people are experiencing you. It doesn't mean that that is a fact, and I'm using air quotes there. It just is important data to kind of begin to develop some markers about how other people experience their interactions with you, how you are showing up in experiences, and kind of overlaying that with your own kind of felt sense of how those experiences are going. And when you can do that over time, it can help you kind of calibrate your compass more towards that accurate self-assessment, which is what we are really aiming for with self-awareness. We want the least biased assessment that we can get to. Of course, there's always going to be some bias because we're human beings, and I'm not sure that complete objectivity is the goal, but we really want to have some guardrails up that kind of ensure that bias isn't really significantly distorting what we know and believe about ourselves. So those 4 things, self-inquiry, self-reflection, meditation, and feedback from the other people and experiences in your life, are ways that you can really actively start to develop self-awareness. And depending on when you're listening to this, we are about to dive into a month of all things related to emotional intelligence on all our social media, on our Facebook, on our Instagram, on our website. So If you want to learn more about this concept of emotional intelligence and how it relates to self-awareness, you're definitely going to want to check out all the great resources we have coming your way. And as always, thanks so much for joining us today. We absolutely value you and your time and want to meet you where you are. Please contact us with your comments and questions on our website, Alison'sIntegrativeHealth.org, and please consider leaving us a rating and review. It helps us to expand access to these important topics.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Integration Nation. As a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for care from a licensed therapist or any other healthcare professional. We're going to continue to explore and discuss with our guests throughout this season how to integrate our experiences, the roles that we take on, and the unique aspects of ourselves in developing and making sense of our identity across time. Our upcoming episodes will be featuring international and local experts on gender and other important aspects of our identity. Listen to more episodes surrounding these concepts and integrative mental health at Alison'sIntegrativeHealth.org.